We are live. All right. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. This is Stephanie Reed coming at you, and we are on health and healing today on Palace TV. Our show today, we're going to be talking about spiritual and mental health, and I have three fabulous looking, gorgeous women with me today. First, I want to say thank you for joining us today. You are joining us on Facebook Live on Palace TV. It is now 3:37 p.m. And today is January 28th, 2019. So I kind of went out of order. The topic again for today is mental health and spiritual health. And what we're going to talk about today is how those two connect possibly, and then also how can we get spiritually and mentally fit. Last month we talked about physical fitness, and we talked a lot about nutrition. We kind of went in a little deep about prescription medication, things like that. So this time I want to focus on our mental and spiritual being today. So I'm glad that you're joining us, if you are joining us. And I hope that you will enjoy the show today. So on my left, I have three gorgeous women that are joining us. I have on my closest left, I have Nana Ture, and I'm going to have her kind of give a brief introduction of herself. She didn't provide me with a written bio, but that's okay. I'll have her do that in person, so go ahead. Let us know who you are.
I'm Nana, and of course, you and I both come to church here, and I am in the healthcare field, working as a nurse, and as well as a dementia practitioner. I have my practitioner license, and so just excited to be here and share my little knowledge.
Okay, so your field is in nursing. What area of nursing? You told me earlier that you work with dementia.
Right.
Okay.
I've worked with in the geriatric population for so long. Skilled rehab, but mostly more so challenging older adults with dementia and stuff. So, which is what make me, intrigue me to get my practitioner license. And that's one of the beauty of being a nurse. You can get so many things within the nursing field, so many certifications and other stuff that you can get. It's such a broad field, and so doing it for quite a while, it was interesting. So I went and got my practitioner license, which I do practice as a dementia practitioner right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole different topic. I don't know if you want to call it mental health, but my dad suffered from dementia, and it was, like I said, that's a whole other thing. I want to write a book about it one day, because that was a heck of an experience to dealing with someone with dementia. So then in the middle here we have Elder Deidre Smith, who is a member of Healing and Deliverance Worship Center, where she faithfully serves under the leadership of Bishop Romel T. Johnson, Sr., and there she is the director of youth ministries and instructor for the ministries and training class. She's a graduate of Capital University and had received her bachelor's of social work degree. She is a licensed social worker and licensed chemical dependency counselor. and has been practicing in the state of Ohio for over 20 years. What? You don't look a bit over 20 years now.
I'm being modest with the 20 years.
Okay. Oh, wow. So more than 20 years.
More.
All right. So she received her master's in pastoral counseling from the Methodist and Theological School of Ohio, and she is currently in a pre-doctorate program. Wow. She's focusing again on pastoral counseling. So that's awesome. And then what else do we have? She is currently the founder and CEO of D.L. Smith Counseling Consultants, LLC. And you'll tell us more about that in a few minutes. So the agency is designed to train and educate lay members of the religious community on mental health and other social disparities that plague our community. So this is great. I mean, you are one of my perfect guests. So I'm glad that you are here today. I met Deidre as a result of us both working for an organization, and so now she started her own company. And so I remember how she served the community within the organization that we work with. I'll leave that nameless right now. And so, you know, I really liked how she did the work that she did with the women in the community that she worked with. So I reached out to you, and I'm so happy that you agreed to be on the show with us. So then finally, on my far left is Tanika Price. And how did I meet Tanika? I met Tanika when her kids were like 5 years old. I was running a summer camp program, and she brought her kids to the summer camp program. And so now her girls she just told me, are almost 13. So I was a long time. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have since moved to a different agency, and everybody's growing up, and I feel like I don't know what I feel. I'm feeling a little older. Yeah. I saw a picture of me and my daughter come up on my Facebook the other day, or this morning, which was 10 years ago. I'm like, what is happening right now? All right, so Tanika Price uses her training as a lawyer, so she's a lawyer, and her passion as a motivational speaker and the knowledge she's gained during her master's degree training at OSU to develop and train others in caring and taking responsibility for their own health. Awesome. See, some of this stuff I didn't even know. You're the perfect guest for me today. So she is currently the program manager for the Community Connector Core program of Celebrate One through the city of Columbus. Prior to her role at Celebrate One, she developed and taught learning topics for weekly community group meetings for pregnant and parenting women in a program she helps to lead called Moms to Be. And that's how I think I met you also, was through Moms to Be, because you were doing that at the church that you did the summer camp program. So she was inspired to educate following the birth of her premature twins. She uses they're not premature. You would never know. Those girls are gorgeous. And so she uses a narrative of trauma-informed care to meet people where they are and empower them to change. She engages through several interactive workshops, including love letters, writing to heal, and narrative repair. Wow. Miss Price is a wife and mother of 6. She is currently in a graduate program to earn her doctorate in education degree. She has an American culture degree from Vassar College and a law degree from Capital University Law School. Man, I picked some powerful women today, didn't I? Wow. Well, since we're telling everybody about themselves, I'm your host, Stephanie Reed, and through Richard, who is our producer and creator of Palace TV, thank you, Richard, I decided that I wanted to do a show. I didn't know what about at first. And then I'm also a host on the Marriage and Happiness Show, which takes place on the second Sundays of the month. And so I have my own health challenges, and you know, knowing my family and other people that I know with health challenges, I thought that maybe it would be a good idea to have a show on health and healing, and how our health, how we can really heal ourselves. And we this is our second show. We did one last month, our first inaugural show last month. And so as we go through the month or through the year, then we'll figure out what topics we're going to have. If you're joining us, please, you know, bring your suggestions, bring your questions. If there's a topic that you want us to focus on, let me know. I have a lot of powerful friends, so I mean, there's so many different areas and so many different directions that we can go in. So I welcome, you know, your suggestions and comments and questions. So let us move on to starting our topic, which is spiritual and mental fitness. So my first question is about mental illness. What does it mean to be mentally ill? What does that look like? Anyone can hop on and answer.
Well, mental illness, it's really basic. You know, it is actually a chemical imbalance in the brain.
Okay.
You know, whether we're lacking some type of chemical in there.
Okay.
Everyone has it. You know, one thing that I learned way when I was in school. You know, we have a book that's called the DSM, which is a diagnostic. Our professors always told us, do not go home and read this book from the beginning to the end, because you will definitely find yourself in there. So we all struggle with different things, and it's just a way that we maneuver, and we can only maneuver it through the chemicals in our body.
Okay. So does that mean, because a lot of people, when they talk about or when they refer to mental illness, they always say, I'm crazy, or you are crazy, or, you know what I'm saying? So kind of take us a little bit deeper into what mental illness is. We know it's a chemical imbalance, but what else?
Well, I was just going to add to that basic definition that one thing that was really encouraging and said to me is that it really depends on how you're able to function, whether or not you even need a diagnosis and treatment.
Okay.
So some people may struggle with something, but they found either at a very early age, or because they had tools, or because they had support, they found a way to get through that in a way that it never impacts their daily life.
Okay.
And so, you know, we all know people who maybe have had periods of depression, or perhaps someone died, or perhaps they went through a divorce, and it was very appropriate. But when we think about people who out of the clear blue sky couldn't get out of bed, you know, or it impacted their lives, that's when there is, in my opinion, a need for diagnosis and then subsequent treatment, because it's impacting the daily living of the person.
Right. What were you going to say something?
Well, that's actually, you know, similar to what I was going to say. But also, you know, how you said that it impacts the daily living. Okay, that is the classic, you know, of saying, okay, I need help. If you can't get out the bed, you know, when you know you should get out the bed, or, you know, you're scared to just face the world, then you know that there is something a little bit deeper. But the problem lies in trying to get them from the bed to the doctor. That's where the problem lies most of the time.
But what if you are getting out of bed, but you're still struggling with, you know, sometimes, and I'll use myself as an example, sometimes, I mean, I get out of bed every day. I know I have to get up. I know I have to get to work, and I know I have to do these things. But a lot of times by the time I get to work, I'm just like, I don't even want to be here. I can't function. I can't focus. What? I mean,
all signs. Signs of feeling hopeless. You do get out of bed and you feel hopeless.
Right.
Withdrawal, feeling isolated.
Right.
Those are all, you know, things you see when people need that help.
Okay.
Moody, just always in a bad mood. Like for me, I'm only in a bad mood all the time. I like to be happy.
Yeah.
So
the rest of the time,
I'm always happy, and that's how I like it. But that moodiness, just don't just feeling so isolated, or like, all those are signs that this person needs help, and it's sometimes it takes. And it's very rarely you see they take that initial steps for themselves. It's usually maybe the people around, or school, someone from school, or someone from work, or a doctor, or a friend, or a neighbor, and then just try to get them to know where to get that help.
Okay. So then let's talk about being spiritually dead. Like, what does that mean? Is it similar to mental illness? What does it look like when someone is spiritually dead?
I don't think it correlates at all.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay.
Because one of the things that I try to educate the community on is just because I have a mental illness does not mean that spiritually I'm dead.
Okay.
They're two separate things.
Okay.
Because back in my theology, when I was a young girl, we were always taught that if a person had a mental illness, then that was of a demonic force. And it's not that case. And it's just that I think that if you are considering yourself spiritually dead, then who is Jesus? I mean, is he alive in your life? I mean, so I don't think that an individual can be spiritually dead unless they just don't know God.
Okay.
Now, mental it's two separate things.
Okay.
Because that's the problem with the African American community, especially. We, mental illness is very taboo. We really don't want to address it in a lot of ways, and because it's so taboo, we just want to demonize it, and one thing we can't do is demonize it, because that's why our people are not going to get the help that they need, because we're simply demonizing it. So, in my opinion, I don't believe that they coincide with each other.
Okay. Well, I was reading something about spiritual atrophy. They called it in this particular article. But some of the characteristics that Nana was saying are similar.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so how do they not connect if they have some of the same characteristics?
Well, when she
put it that way,
like
some
some others would say see it as a stigma. And I know that was one of your questions, like the stigma of it. When people think of someone with mental health, you just think they're crazy. And that's a stigma. And for me, if I put the two together, is mental health affects your emotional well-being greatly. And when you're emotionally detached from yourself, you are not going to be spiritually connected to God, because it takes your emotional well-being and your psychological well-being to know that I need to have a relationship with God. So for me, that's the way I was able to connect the two, because mental health do affect your emotional and your psychological well-being.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to piggyback off what Nana's saying, I wrote down that it had, when you're spiritually dead, you have no awareness of what's happening. So you cannot see the traps that are being set.
And for someone in a mental health state, you can be in that, especially if it's caused from a stressful event in your life that brings that stress and challenges for you. It can make you spiritually dead.
So then I ask the question: what is the difference between spiritual warfare and a mental illness? Because there is a difference when someone is demonically oppressed versus having a mental illness. So then I would I would challenge, and ask that, what is the difference at that point?
So I would look at it just like not a lot of people see a correlation between what you eat and diabetes and your spirituality. But to me, there is a correlation, because if I'm obedient, I remember I used to always pray, God, please don't let me get diabetes. And I used to always feel in my spirit, God saying, put that pop down. I didn't see the correlation. I was like, what does my pop have to do with me not eventually getting diabetes?
Right.
But in my disobedience and still drinking that pop, I was walking down the road to diabetes. So it may not be, I'm not suggesting that the diagnosis of mental illness could be attached to spiritual warfare, but the management, because if I'm not obedient to what the doctor says, if I choose to self-medicate and go to drugs, if I'm reckless with how I take care of my body, then it may impact my feelings of wellness with the diagnosis that I'm getting. Does that make sense?
No, because let me tell you what, girl.
Sound good to me. Everybody, that sounded good to me. Okay.
No, it makes a lot of sense. But what I'm trying, just like you gave the example of the diabetes, I totally get it. But see, yet again, we have singled out mental illness as the spiritual.
I'm not saying it's physical as well as.
It can't just be, you can't just look at the mental illness and say that, okay, this person has a mental illness and are they spiritually dead?
Yeah.
I don't
think so. I mean, that's just my opinion.
What my point was making, I think what this article point was making, is that if you have spiritual challenges, then it affects
absolutely
your mental health.
Absolutely.
It affects your
physical health.
So that's, I think that's where the connection is that when you are spiritually dead, then all these other things, like almost a domino effect, happen to us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yes.
So anytime we're dealing with something in our life and we see the fruit, and the fruit is death, then we know somewhere behind that the enemy is, because God comes to give us life and life more abundantly. And what I wrote down was, think about the man who loses his job. The only thing that happened was he lost his income and he committed suicide. Where you have people living every day. There was this one guy I saw last week on 30 by 30 or ESPN, no limbs. He was born with no limbs, and he's living a fruitful life. He's a coach, he's a mentor, he's a public speaker, he's a motivational speaker. He gives all praise to God because he's choosing to live a full life with no limbs. But another person can't even handle getting fired.
Okay, so then is someone who is spiritually dead, then what you're saying is that it affects your mental health. So are we saying that people who commit suicide, are we making that connection, are spiritually dead? Is that?
You're like, right. That's an hard situation. I mean, I can use that as an example because that the person that I knew specifically, that was his reason for taking his life. And so, in that moment, he just felt like he had lost everything. Right. But we all have bounced back from losing a job. You know what I mean? I was just using that as an example.
I understand. But I'm still trying to make the connection somehow.
And I see it, for me, I see it mainly on the emotional well-being part. Because for you to reach to the point where you make that decision to take your life, you must have no emotional well-being and no sense of control at all. No hope.
Right.
And
when you feel that way, I mean, where does it even leave you to say, let me go reach out to God or seek out Christ? So for me, it's more of the emotional well-being, and I feel like if you're not, when you're emotionally challenged, there are times where I'll go a whole week without picking up the Bible, and it's due from just having a stressful long 12 hours from work every day, Monday through Friday, and it leaves me no time to come at home and read my Bible because I'm so emotionally stressed and drained. And for me, I feel like the emotional part of it, they're connected.
Okay. Let me take a little break here and say thank you for joining us. If you are joining us, I do see a few people online with us. Somebody named Lucy, and I'm not even going to try and say your last name. Those are my friends. name. I guess their name is Holy Hills Rad, or
that's my radio.
Oh, all right.
I do radio
Well, welcome.
Saturdays.
Thank you for watching. Someone named Masaba says, "I see you,
Hi, Masa.
Our producer is watching. He says this show is very educational or educative to us and family. Please share and like on Palace TV. And then Esther is watching with us. And that's it so far. I hope you join us and ask us questions. We have a really great dynamic group of guests here today to answer all your questions about mental health, spiritual health, and any other question that you want to ask. We are at 4:02 p.m. and you're watching Palace TV. All right, so I have another question for you. So why is it important to be spiritually healthy?
I think that a lot of what we've already talked about. I teach my kids that God is not a magician. It's not somebody you just hocus pocus bam and get your answers. God wants a relationship, and when you have a relationship with somebody, you know what their expectations are for you. You know what the rules are that they set, and you know that those rules are set in love. And so then when something goes wrong, before you even pray and ask God to get it out, you think, well, what did He tell me about this kind of situation? What have I read in the Bible that can help me get myself out of this? And then when you have the 911 situations, you know, that needs to be when you go to God in earnest prayer because you don't have an answer or because you don't know which way to turn. But I think too many of us, regardless of whether you grew up in the church or not, we just think God is on speed dial. You know, like He's supposed to just pop up when we need Him, and then we put Him back in the closet after that and go on with our life like He's not important. But we have to have those daily, like you said, reading the Bible, prayer, our songs, all of those things that keep us in constant communication with God. A lot of times that'll keep us out of a lot of the stuff that we end up getting into.
Yes. You know, for me, is to be spiritually healthy. Just sense of fulfillment, sense of fruitfulness, sense of, like you said, having a relationship. Just puts you in a happy mood. You're not bitter, you know, because you don't take anything so much for granted. Because you know that God got you. You have a relationship. You know where to go. Right. And so it's just that sense of fulfillment, sense of knowing that. I know my purpose. Sense of purpose. So those are all a healthy sense of spiritual needs to me.
Good. You guys are saying all the things that are in my article, which is wonderful.
Maybe you picked the article from my friend.
That's good. So one of the things I heard you saying is purpose. So someone who's spiritually healthy does have a meaning for life and a purpose. You know, they feel like they're here for a reason. They have connection either with God or with people or with nature. They're connected to the earth and to the world or to our higher power, whether that be God or whoever it is that you worship. Worship, you know, having a healthy worship life and prayer life and meditation, I think are all a part of being spiritually healthy. So in line with that, then what is being mentally healthy? How do you feel about that?
Just having effective coping skills, you know, because I think everyone suffers with something, minor or major. Everyone has something, but having those coping skills that you can, you know, get through life. You know, you got to have a hobby. I tell my clients that all the time. You have to have a hobby because that's a part of, you know, clearing your mind. Some people run, and they say when they run, their mind is cleared, or they ride their bikes, mind is just clear. So it's just having a healthy coping skill that you can rely on, not drugs, because some people use that as a coping skill. You know, so having a healthy coping skill is having those positive things that, you know, we need to venture out and do. Some people like to bake. I like to bake, you know. My sweet potato pie, that's about it, to be honest. But I can make that forever and ever, and it makes me feel good. So whatever releases those endorphins in our body to make us feel good, that's how we can tell we have a healthy mental health.
Okay. I know when I'm running regularly, like for the last several months, I haven't been, and I can tell. I can tell that that depression starts sneaking back in. Then I start feeling like I can't do anything. You know, the only thing that I'm able to do is go to work and come back home. You know, and then the rest of the day I'm like just sitting on the couch. So when I do run, or when I not even necessarily running, but running for me is like the best. But even just working out, you know, however many days a week that I can get it in, that helps me, because as you said, those endorphins, those feel-good chemicals or hormones, they're not hormones. Are they hormones? Chemicals, whatever. They kick in, and it's like you feel good. Like when I do it in the morning and then I go to work, my work day is perfect from the beginning to the end. So I agree with you that you're having to have something that, you know, kicks those endorphins in and those feel-good chemicals and helps you get through your day. You know, if you don't have time to do like a running or physical fitness or something like that, then finding something that's healthy, that's not a detriment to your drugs and alcohol, that, you know, can give you that same feeling, you know. And, you know, we talking about physical health and nutrition, you know, also making sure that we're not putting things in our body that are going to have the opposite effect. You know, like too much sugar could ultimately have the opposite effect on us. So we can go in a totally different direction with regard to that. But I think this is good so far. So my next questions are, what are some signs? And I think we already went through this, but I want to specifically say, what are the signs that one or both of these things, our spiritual or mental health, is out of whack? What are some signs that people can look for?
So one of the things that you know, through my research, is what I found when people are under, you know, spiritual warfare or of a demonic attack. You know, it messes with, you know, the enemy messes with your mind. That's first. And that's why mental health is so important, because the first attack that he does is to your mind. And if he can get you off track mentally, then everything else falls from there. So it could be just those basic things. When your kids is cutting up, you can't see, you know, right from wrong. You can't see anything. You can't get through to nobody. That is just a clear indication that you're under attack. And some of the things that you need to do is go to God, you know. So, but, you know, physical attack, you know, those are some of the mentally attack. You know, those are, you know, some of the things that I believe that, you know, that's how we know when we're under a spiritual attack.
Somebody told me once, and this really changed my life, that if a situation or a person can change how you feel about God, then you've made that person or that situation an idol. And what I mean by that is, if, you know, you find out your husband's leaving you, and all of a sudden you go to God in a fit of rage. Why? I don't understand. You know, you just allowed that thing to be elevated higher than what you know about God. And that has really changed how I've thought about God.
Say that again.
So if you allow a person or a situation to be elevated above God, meaning that you elevate that problem or that situation higher than what you know to be true about God, that he wants the best for us, that he loves us
unconditionally. That whatever door is being opened or shut, it is part of his plan for you. If you allow this situation to change how you see him, you've turned that into an idol.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so through all things, you know, he never said we wouldn't go through things, we wouldn't have trials, we wouldn't. That's not promised in the Bible.
right.
What he said is that he'd be with us through it all.
Yes.
That is what we have to know to be true. And so I think if we've allowed a situation to change our countenance, to change how we feel, you know, even to do things that are outside of your character, like curse or spit or, you know, think ill about people, then we've elevated that thing higher than our relationship with God, and we need to really check ourselves. What are we knowing to be true in this moment, right? And I think that has helped me a lot with just mental health, because I used to be a firecracker and just always responding to things and always getting angry and always cutting people off and writing stuff off, and that's not God's character. That's not reflective of God's character. And if we are in relationship with him, we should be reflecting his character, right? Just like if you have a really good teacher, you want to be like that teacher. You know, you want to make that teacher proud of you. So it's the same thing with God, and everything that we're going through, we want to make God proud of us by how we go through. And I think that thinking of your mental and spiritual health, again, it has nothing to do with your diagnosis. It has to do with how you carry the things, the cards that you've been dealt, how you deal with the way that life is kind of unfolded. It's not what you go through, it's how you go through.
Right, and that is true. Like, you see changes in your personality, change your character, and that's like going from one person pretty much to a total different person, where you can recognize, like you were saying, those letting that thing overpower you. It's pretty much just letting whatever that situation just consume your life, where it's like you've making it part of who you are, and that's not healthy at all. It's not healthy.
And I've researched, like there was this man who, his wife was killed by a drunk driver. And, you know, he was devastated. But you know what he did? He went to the jail to seek out the young man, to mentor him. He was like, obviously he needs help. Obviously he needs someone in his life. And do you know now they go around the country touring together about the dangers of drunk driving? And I mean, again, these are the stories that I look at that just blow my mind, because we think of how we will react.
Like,
we
turn
don't know.
a negative situation
to
it's
not what
positive.
you go through, it's how you go through it.
How you handle it.
He handled the worst possible situation. His kids don't have a mom. He doesn't have a wife. And his first thought is, what can I do for this young man? What is more God-like, more Christ-like than that? You know?
But you see, that's where, like what you just said right now, like that's where there are certain situations where we're all different as an individual. We all have, like, how we handle stress. There are certain situations that are unexpected event that may happen in your life where you might able to handle that very well, where I may not. But for me, like when she was trying to find a connection with the spiritual being, I feel like if you have a very healthy spiritual life, that might help you before. That might help you know how to, handle that stressful situation where you don't let it consume your life. Where if I'm detached spiritually, that whatever it is, that situation might consume me so much where it messes my psychological and emotional me, which might lead to mental health.
Absolutely.
Ladies, that's good. We have a couple more people that are joining us. Someone named Tina Vine says, hi, everyone.
Hi, Tina.
Is joining us. We have Daniel Sharif made a comment. He said, spiritual health is challenging to define, develop, and maintain. An individual with high levels of spiritual wellness will experience increased physical, social, and emotional health. Thank you, Daniel, for that comment. And then someone just joined us, Gloria. It says, very educative. Thank you, guys. You are welcome.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. I'm hoping that people are watching and thinking about what we're saying today and really getting into this topic. It's so important. Mental health, especially you know, so many of us suffer, and we hear about young children nowadays that are committing suicide.
Yes.
There's a lot of outside sources that sometimes cause people to have mental health issues, or sometimes cause people to feel like they have no other hope than to commit suicide. You know, thinking about when I was young, I think I'll say my mother was ahead of her time. This is a positive spin on it. So she decided at some point to cut all of the girls' hair. So all of us girls, we had long hair, and she got tired of doing it one day, and so she decided to cut all our hair off. Okay? So we, for however many years until we, I guess, decided how we were going to do our hair as teenagers or before we went to college, we had afros. Back in a time when afros weren't popular. They're popular now. I'm rocking an afro, a TWA, and I love it. But back then it wasn't okay. So when you say bullying, I mean, we were the definition of bullying. We were bullied daily, constantly, all the time. It was awful. I can say that my elementary childhood life was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I don't know, there's probably many days where I felt like I didn't want to be here, or I didn't want to go to school, and, you know, crying, coming home from school every day, blaming my mother because, you know, why did you make us look like boys, and all this other kind of stuff. And so so when I think about the kids nowadays who, you know, I look, they show pictures of the kids, and, you know, parents are saying that they were bullied in school, and I'm just like, I mean, this is a beautiful child. You know, I don't understand how would you commit suicide? I just don't get it. You know, if I'm thinking about what the things that this child went through and the things that I went through, and me and my family, my sisters, and we never told anyone. You know, we just dealt with it. It wasn't something that, you know, you don't get the school involved, and, you know, some of the teachers even bullied us. Some of the teachers would constantly call us boys, knowing that we were girls. And it was just like, it was because our hair was short, or it wasn't in braids, or we didn't have bows or barrettes and all that kind of stuff. So I don't understand how nowadays a child being bullied, you know, automatically wants to go to committing suicide. I don't understand.
Well, I think when you think about the Army, very few countries have ever, I think Israel might be an exception to this, but very few countries have just thrown people into a war without preparation first.
Correct.
And everything that you go through when you're in basic training is to prepare you for the battle. And I think that we are looking right now at a generation that has not been prepared for what they are encountering. We as parents can't prepare our children for social media because we didn't grow up with it.
That's right.
I don't know what it feels like to be bullied on social media when I'm 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, because that wasn't a fight that I had to deal with. I know for me personally, I had a hard time letting my first daughter fall and get scraped. So we're dealing with a generation that's not had a lot of resilience, right? We've done everything for them because of the way that we were raised, and we feel like our mom just said, go outside and don't come back. So we have coddled, and I mean, just the thought of my daughter falling used to make me want to cry when I was a 19, 20-year-old mom. So how do we build resilience in our children so that they're able to go out and someone say something to them, but it not, I mean, these kids now, everybody on the team gets a trophy. You see what I'm saying? We have a generation where they don't know anything about the competition, about, oh, that person, being able to admit he was the best person on the team. He deserved a trophy. No, we all get trophies. So I just think it's a different mindset, and we're not doing enough to equip our children because we don't really know what this battle looks like for what they're encountering.
Wow. I just got a message that our phone line is open, so if you want to use the phone and call in, and ask us a question. The phone number is 614-420-4365. We have put it in the comments, so if you're watching the phone line, the phone number is in the comments. You are watching Palace TV, and we are on health and healing, and we're talking today about spiritual and mental health. My beautiful guests here, Nana Toure, Deidre Smith, and Tanika Price are wonderful. This is really, really a good show today. I'm learning a lot, and having some things confirmed, and I'm so thankful for these young ladies. I'll say
Absolutely.
young ladies.
You're as young as you feel.
Yes. I'm so thankful for them being on the show today and helping me to, talk to you guys about spiritual and mental health. Let's get back to the questions. We had a couple more people all join us. We have Jeriatu Manasare has joined us.
I'm his sister.
I know. Thank you. Only because I know her. So.
Good job.
Yeah. All right. So thank you. If you're watching, please share the show with your friends and let them know that we're on and that what we're talking about today. That would be helpful. Let's see. Let's go into our next question. And I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's go back to it. Why is there such a stigma associated with mental health? Why do people don't want to talk about mental health?
Well, I can only speak, I think about the generation of the baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't talk about, I'm not a boomer. They didn't talk about mental health because we took care of it. We took care of our family members who suffered with mental illnesses.
When you say took care of it, what do you mean?
I can remember. I put them away in the back room. We took care of them. So they were in our homes. We knew that they was touched, but that was okay,
right?
Because they were our brother or our uncle, and we took care of them.
Okay.
So it wasn't a community thing, right? It was a family thing. And so now that we don't have that generation that's going to take care of anybody. They're forced to come out in the community where we're looking at it like, something's wrong with him.
Right.
When our families back in those days, they hid things. They took care of everything. That's just my opinion on why it's such a stigma now.
Yeah, I mean, as growing up, I'm a baby boomer, and growing up, I just never heard anything about mental health. I'm sure I saw it. I'm sure we saw, maybe, I don't know.
Because your family took care of it, Your family, I had an uncle that was like that, and we didn't, as family members, we didn't think anything was wrong with them, but we knew something was wrong, right? We knew something was wrong, but we didn't put them away. We didn't send them to a nursing home. We definitely didn't have all these community mental health agencies to send them to.
Yeah.
We just dealt with it as a family.
Okay.
Just hearing her say that just makes me appreciate so much how, as a society, there's so much awareness now when it comes to mental health, only because we've seen so much on TV, like someone is under stress or they lose their job. In someone's case earlier, you said that they just pick up a gun and shoot up people. But it's so much awareness coming out where there's so much education and there's so much need for people with mental health background and certifications and education to just spread those awareness where we don't have to put them at home and think it's okay because they're a family member, but to seek for those help and search for where those helps are. And there's so many out there. And I'm so grateful for how much it's becoming the norm of spreading the awareness out there. So where it's not just, someone have a mental health issue, they're crazy. Back where I came from, I'm originally from Africa, where there's no help, there's no resources, there's no education. Like you see people who are mentally challenged out in the street, just mingling with the rest of the people who are not. And it's such a scary environment to leave, but that's the norm. Like where I came from, like they're just out there because there's nowhere to take them. They don't even keep them at home where they take care of them. They're just out there. So it's for me, I feel relieved to know that it's becoming an awareness, and that most and almost all of us need to know and how to help those people that are suffering.
But I kind of have a counter to that. There is more awareness. There is more, it's more out there in the open. But you still have a lot of people committing suicide. And you still have a lot of people saying, I had no idea that they were struggling mentally. I had no idea that they were facing depression. And so if there's awareness is there, then why do we continue to have
it's will. It's free will. You can't force a person to go in, and this law.
People saying that they didn't even know that they were.
But it's even a law. We can't even make a person take medication.
Right.
Well, we know good and well that's their best option. They don't have to take anything. So we can lead you to the resources, but if you don't take it in, there's nothing that we can do.
Wow.
I think that it has a lot to do with the reason why you felt like you felt when you had an afro. I think everybody wants to be normal and fit in. And I think that we feel like when we go through something and we feel those feelings, I'm not normal.
Okay.
Also, one of the one of the symptoms of a lot of mental health issues is withdrawal. So rather than say, hey, I'm not feeling like myself, I'm not feeling good, the impetus is like just to withdraw. And a lot of people who've been through, this is what I study in my dissertation, adverse childhood experiences. So the higher your average childhood experiences, the more that you've been through before you're 18, the less you trust the world, right? If your mom and dad didn't take care of you and they neglected you and they physically assaulted you or abused you and you were sexually assaulted, why would I trust my friend for anything, for any basic need?
But then sometimes some people are so scared to say something because of the stigma, the stigma.
But it's just wanting to be
like
normal because they don't want to be the one that something's wrong with. And you don't have a trusted person that you can go to and say, hey, I'm not feeling good, and not have to worry about children's services coming and taking your children or losing your job. You feel like there's going to be ramifications for me speaking up. And I think until we can build those networks and those ties, again, before something happens, right? Because we always wait until after it happens and want to try to build those networks. They have to be there before something happens in order for me to trust somebody to tell them how I'm really feeling.
Right.
And
so
also,
I think, I think, as parents, as educators that work with children, I think it's important to make them aware.
Yes.
To say things like, I don't know, maybe they're feeling sad today. It's okay to feel sad.
Yes.
It's okay to feel down or not like yourself.
Yes.
But, if you're feeling like you need help or if you feel like you need to talk to someone, I think that awareness needs to happen more.
Earlier. It has to happen earlier.
And I was talking earlier about how, I would even say both of my children, but how my daughter in particular struggled with depression and anxiety, and I was able to recognize it quickly, and I was able to get her some help, someone that she could talk to, someone other than me, right? Because a lot of times the things that they say to other people or counselors or whatever, they're not going to say to the parents. So I think as a parent and as an educator and someone who's around children all the time, you know, we have to be more aware. We have to pay attention.
Yeah. And can I say something too that I've never said?
Yeah.
We also have to, as a culture, change our paradigm, because I watched a mom spank a child and then tell him to shut up and stop crying.
Okay.
And I mean, we do it all the time. Our son falls and we say, "Get up, you all right." What we're teaching them is that their emotions are not valid. And my son was crying, and I was telling him, "You don't have anything to cry about." He said, "These are my emotions, and I can express them."
Oh, wow.
You know, he's 8 years old. Benji, you already know. But he's teaching me something, because culturally, that's how we parent, right? We say, "Stop crying, you all right." And that's part of that resilience that we're trying to teach. But at the same time, we're denying our children the emotions, to have a name to the emotion and to express it. So what happens when you have to continually stuff your emotions and you're not allowed to express them? Then you do find unhealthy coping mechanisms to continue that feeling of stuffing your emotions, because you've never learned to give voice to what you're feeling.
Let me shout out my workplace here for a second, and one person in particular. There's a program that I oversee that's in a homeless shelter, and so we work with children suffering from toxic, what is it called? Trauma from being homeless, or from whatever caused them to be homeless. And so we're working with those children every day. And so the director of the program, Paula Neal, decided that there's something that we need to do. We can't treat this as a traditional child care center. There's something that we need to do differently that will help these children to express their emotions in a positive and in a safe way. So she brought in some company, I don't remember the name of the company, but taught her staff about conscious discipline. So it focuses on particularly what you were saying about allowing children to express their emotions in a safe and can't think of the other word, but in a safe way, and in a way where your teachers are not going to tell you to be quiet or tell you to stop crying, and help you come up with coping mechanisms. So even the short period of time that these kids are with us, I think that they're learning some coping skills that they can hopefully take with them throughout their lives. And so, sometimes we have kids that are only there for a few days or a few weeks, and so hopefully the stuff that we're teaching them, the stuff that we're giving to them, that they're able to take with them as they, move on. Let me break here for a minute. I want to shout out a couple more people have joined us online. There's Alex. Not going to mess up your last name, but it looks like a Brokwa.
That's Pastor Alex.
Okay. Oh, Pastor. And then Shani Taylor just came on. She said, hey. And then one of my friends, Edwana Freeman, is online. So welcome for joining us today on Health and Healing on Palace TV. It is 4:34. We're about 30 minutes away from the end of our show. I think this is a topic that we can talk about for, forever, really. I think a lot of people out there suffer from some mental health issues. Maybe it's depression, maybe something a little more deeper than that. And sometimes people struggle with their spiritual health. So I think this show hopefully will help you to come up with some coping mechanisms and come up with ways to be more spiritually and mentally fit. Okay? So thank you again for joining us today. So we have a few more questions that we want to get through, and then I'm upset that nobody's online asking us questions. I really want questions from our audience. I think it's important. I mean, we could be answering questions as we're talking. I think we're really touching on a lot of different areas, and I think maybe we're already answering your questions. So I'm hoping that's what it is. Don't be shy. Come on, ask us a question. Let's see. I want to kind of maybe tackle some personal experiences that we've gone through, and maybe talk about that a little bit before we go to the next few questions. So anyone want to share any personal experience as far as either in the mental health or the spiritual health area?
I just think it's important for people to get diagnosed.
Okay.
Because I went through a situation with my daughter, and they kept asking me, is this in the family? And I'm like, yeah, we got crazy people, but like nobody ever been diagnosed or like, really like. And it was so hard because so much of this is spiritual and it's physical and it's mental and it's also generational.
Right.
And that's, that's in the Bible as well as in the DSM, So not knowing, I don't care if you're 55, 60, 65, 70. If you know you're struggling, if you know that there's periods of times when you don't feel in control, and you really have struggled with getting on top of things, like it's never too late to get diagnosed. And even if not for yourself, for your children, for your grandchildren, for your great-grandchildren, so that we can start to understand some of the, as Iyanla would say, pathologies that are alive and active in our families, because some of this stuff is skipping generations. Like granddaddy had it, daddy didn't have it, but now my son has it, So the more we can understand about what people have struggled with in their inner lives, because some of the stuff is obvious, the alcoholism, the domestic violence, those are the things that you can't really hide in the closet. But I think things like bipolar and depression, they're much easier. She just had a little spell when she couldn't get out the bed, or, he was just prone to anger, he went off. Those are the things that we say in our families, but like these things have diagnosis and treatment plans, treatment options. And I think just getting some of that is going to really help the future generations.
Yeah. I think sometimes people don't want to do the whole medicine thing or prescription thing. I think when there was a point in time, I'm trying to remember what year it might have been. I was still at Salvation Army, maybe 2006, 2007, where I was having some serious depression issues, and I decided to go on medication. And man, it didn't work for me. It caused, I had so many side effects that were worse than the depression itself.
Yeah.
So I decided to make a commitment to, that's when I started running, and I started running a lot. I started doing half marathons and all these different road races and stuff like that. It was like I was running for my life. And so some people, they don't want to go that route. Like, and I heard you say that, you can get the diagnosis and you can get to the point where they're on medication, but then they don't have to take the medication.
But there are other ways, there are alternatives. I think the biggest thing is getting in and seeking the physician's help.
Okay.
And whatever they recommend, that's what you do.
Okay.
Because there are some people who it might be just as simple as increase in vitamin D.
Yeah.
Something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Or let's give you some melatonin so you can go to sleep.
Yes.
Because the lack of rest causes all of these things that we're talking about. So if they can't sleep at night, it jumpstarts everything else. So it can be so simple. The fix can be simple.
It could be your diet.
It could be your diet. Everything, every diagnosis doesn't need psychotropic drugs.
Right.
So I think that what you're saying is just go and find out what's wrong.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about, other things after that.
Okay. Can I also say that one of the things, this is another cultural thing, because I was put on high blood pressure medication last June, and I was strongly in denial. Okay, so I was taking them all type of crazy when I felt like it. And my doctor, luckily she's African American, but she had to have a real come to Jesus conversation with me. And so basically, what I'm learning now is even if you're taking them and you're having side effects, if you're not communicating that to your doctor, then she can't calibrate.
That's right.
And when we just step down ourselves, or worse, go off ourselves, we could be damaging or creating long-term problems that the medication is meant to solve. So she basically told me, listen, I'm trying to have you just take this for a little bit of time, lose weight, diet and exercise, and get off of them. But if you mess around now, you could be on them forever just because you're not taking them the way that they're prescribed now. Does that make sense? So sometimes we just go off of them because we don't like the way they make us feel without having that conversation with the doctor, who then may be able to say, well, let's go down from 20 milligrams to 15 and see if the side effects, or let's try this, the water pill without the. So I would just advise, first of all, you have to have a doctor you can trust. Because if you don't trust them, then you're not going to go back and have that conversation, right? And then second of all, making sure that we are holding ourselves accountable and doing what our doctor asks. And it's easier said than done. But I am on my high blood pressure medicine as prescribed right now. So looking forward to my next doctor's visit.
It's also very important to know yourself.
Good.
When you know yourself, then when something is wrong, you know something is wrong. And also to know, like, I have to seek help. Like for me, I know you were asking about personal stuff. Like 2011, 2012 was a pretty rough year for me, where I was in some really, really deep depression. But having the awareness that I'm very depressed because of a certain situation that's going through in my life right now, and just like you mentioned, rest, knowing that I need rest, or just sometimes knowing when to take a time out. Like I just need a 10-minute break. Sometimes that's all it takes. I just need a 10-minute break, or maybe I just need to drink a little bit more water instead of let me pass out on the Pepsi. Sometimes that's all it takes. Or just maybe I need to talk to someone, and sometimes maybe just they may not able to help my situation, but at least just having that sense of knowing someone actually is listening to you, it does help. And so it's very important to know yourself as an individual. So when something is wrong, something is not right, and knowing to seek help.
I have a couple questions. Daniel, thank you, Daniel. He's participating here. He's right over there. Says one of the questions he asked, does medication help with or heal emotional stress? And I don't know. I'm trying to think of as far as emotional stress.
There are medication, but in today's society, they try so much not to rely so much on them because there's so much side effect. So absolutely, there is medication for
anxiety.
Anxiety. There is, but they try to do the other option, the canceling, the talking, the taking care of yourself, making time of yourself. Maybe I need a vacation for myself. I need to go watch a movie or read a book. They rather use those other things first before medication.
Mindfulness is a powerful underutilized tool for anxiety and stress, and I've read several studies about mindfulness. But
what is mindfulness?
So mindfulness is just clearing your thoughts. Meditation. There's apps that you can download.
Absolutely.
But I don't struggle much with insomnia. But when I have or severe anxiety, I have used apps to really talk me through and get me, breathing techniques. There's grounding techniques, so just getting grounded to the physical. Most anxiety is either about what's happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future. So if you can ground yourself to feeling safe in the moment and just being in the moment, that can help to dissipate some of the anxiety that you may be feeling.
Okay. Somebody named Sammy Lou is online, and she says, the Lord is great, is the great physician. He is the healer. And then her other comment is, the truth is in the word. Agree. Your body is your temple. Care for your physical bodies.
Right.
However, your mind is renewed through Christ. And she quotes Romans 12:2. Our hope comes from the Lord, not worldly interventions. That is true. That is 100%.
But I thank God for a C-section. That's a worldly intervention that saved my life.
What was it?
A C-section. I mean, I'm all about the natural and holistic until it came down to that C-section. And I was like, thank you, Lord, for this here C-section. Because I wouldn't be here.
Or I would say the same for my son. So, yeah, so definitely. And then, let's see, Daniel asked us another question. He says, how do you identify someone who is having mental health issues?
They're a loner. We've said this all.
Isolation.
They're a loner. They isolate themselves. They're moody.
Okay.
They're like just, you know, just don't want to talk. Just
checked out.
Just
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be the best way I can
identify
that.
How do you what's my word? Decipher between someone who's, like as we described, a loner, checked out, whatever, and someone who's an introvert? That's all how you describe. That's my personality.
But I think you wouldn't be like that to your closest friend.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing.
Okay.
Even introverts have close friendships and have close bonds.
Right.
So my oldest daughter, she's an introvert, but I know when she's checking out. If I text her 3 texts in a row and she don't respond, she's checking out. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference in how they usually communicate or usually respond.
Okay.
If your usual response time is 2-3 days and it's been 7 days, you see what I'm saying? So first of all, you have to, again, have those relationships. You have to already have those bonds. For me to even know your personality enough to know when you're checked out means that we're in a relationship. And that's what has to come first.
Yeah. And I used to say that. I used to make a joke with my son that if I text him and he doesn't, and it takes him days to text back, it was like, okay, something's going on.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, and if he doesn't respond even more and more, when he was at a right state, I would get in the car and go up there.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Why aren't you answering my text? I know your phone is working because I call it's charged.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you answering me? So yeah, I always knew when he was checking out. All right, so it looks like we have about 10 more minutes on our show today. I didn't get through all of my questions, but I think there's one more important question that I want to ask. Sammy Lou said something else. She said meditation and mindfulness is Eastern religion, not Christ-centered. Okay?
Actually, prayer is mindfulness.
Okay.
So the Bible says to meditate on His Word day and night. And that is in the Word. So even if you get one scripture, and every time stress and anxiety come up, you speak that scripture, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I am the head and not the tail. Whatever it needs to be. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. If you get a scripture and you say that in your mind when you're going through, that is the same thing as mindfulness and meditation.
Okay. But then she did say that prayer and faith is powerful. Sammy Lou is on a roll now. She's saying now, praying for revelation for y'all. Praying you see the truth in the Word regarding mental health and healing. Praying the Lord builds your faith in His divine abilities. Bless you and shalom.
Hopefully
so
she
Sammy,
prays with us and not on us.
Yes.
We don't need
I like
we don't need nobody praying on us, right, sisters? We need people praying with us. Sammy Lou.
Sorry. That's not good.
Y'all didn't know I'm a comedian on my side.
She's going for us.
She is.
Yes,
Pray with us, Sammy. That's right.
Pray
Amen.
with us.
Shalom.
Bless you for clarifying. So, Sammy, you did come into the show a little late. So
We are believers, Sammy. We believe.
Definitely believers in a lot of what we talked and we did. We are. This is focusing on spiritual health and focusing on God.
She went back into her
Thank
mind.
you for your comments.
Good job.
Thank you. I am with you.
All right, now, Sammy.
All right, my final question before we go, and I just really want to go.
Amen, sisters.
It is great. So, let's see. So I have 2 questions. Let's try and get through these quickly.
Okay.
So what are some things we can do to be more spiritually and mentally healthy? And I think we kind of went through that. Tanika, you kind of answered the question beforehand.
Yeah,
but
daily. Daily, not just when you get in trouble, but have that daily practice.
Right. Does anyone want to add to that?
And I would add to invite Jesus in your stuff. Because
that's
when
good.
you don't invite him, he's such a gentleman. He's not going to just
come
bombard
on now.
himself.
Right.
So
like
you have
that.
to invite him in your stuff, and then we will be able to see some changes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amen to that one.
Don't invite him afterwards.
Right.
In the beginning.
Yeah. I like her. Okay. I know, right? Okay, so and my final question is, where can people go for help if they need it?
Oh, so many places.
I know there's so many places.
So many places.
Give them
Like,
give them some. Some
I would say this, believe it or not, if you are a very, a type of person that just like to be into your own stuff and you have a regular physician, go to your doctor, because your doctor may be able to help you out with some things. Everything does not need to go to a mental health agency, you know. You don't necessarily have to go to a mental health agency. You can start right at your physician.
Okay.
I have a great resource, Mental Health America of Franklin County. They have free resources for people who may not have insurance. They also help contact people with their appropriate resources for their insurance. And that's MHAFC.org. And their phone number is 614-221-1441. And they are funded by the state and the county. So there's no, agenda except for just to help people in Franklin County feel better. There's a lot of resources right on the website that'll help you do assessments to figure out what's going on. It's just a great place to start. If you are having urgent feelings of hopelessness or suicide, I would recommend NetCare.
Absolutely.
Or any ER.
NAMI.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys heard of NAMI, NAMI.
Yes.
It's a great resource here in Ohio.
Yes.
And
Can you
then
repeat the one that you said with the phone number and the
Yes.
website?
Yes. So it's MHAFC.org, and the phone number is 614-221-1441, and that's Mental Health America of Franklin County.
Okay. So MHAFC.org.
Yes.
All right.
and then there's NAMI, and that's NAMI. And their phone number is 614-224-2700.
And then there is NetCare Access. That is the emergency room for mental health issues and also substance abuse. It's located at 199 South Central Avenue. The phone number is 614-276-2273.
And anyone who may be feeling hopeless, there is help, and there is hope. So please, if you're feeling like harming yourself or anybody that you're with, please get help, even if you have to call 911 to be transported to the emergency room. We just want you to know today that there is hope, and there is help.
And you said you had
There's
one
the actual Ohio Department of Mental Health. That's off of Broad Street. Their number is 614-466-2596. Okay.
And that's the Ohio Department
of Mental
Health.
Yes. And that's a great resource.
I want to thank you ladies so much. It has been a pleasure having you on the show today. You guys really made the show great today. I'm so thankful for you guys. And I want to ask you to come back. I mean, for real. And whatever other topics you want to focus on. There's a young lady that is my Facebook friend, and I really want her to come on maybe next month's show to talk about food and how we can use food as a healing mechanism.
Yeah.
And so she's someone who has over the last, I believe it's over the last year or last 2 years, has lost a significant amount of weight just by changing her diet and adding, exercise and things like that. I really want to bring someone in to talk about that. And I mean, I have so many topics and so many ideas with this mental health and spiritual health. We can continue to talk about this. It's such a
important topic in our community, and I think it's something that we need to continue to talk about. Thank you for joining us on Palace TV. We have some really dynamic programming that we offer every Sunday. Yes. Typically, our first Sundays are live worship. Our second Sunday is Marriage and Happiness, and I'm a guest on that show with our other Minister Hannah, and our producer, host, creator Richard. And then the third Sunday is the pulpit. So we usually invite pastors in, and we talk about different topics. We've been on demonology for several months in a row, and then we also have our youth hour and our lovers corner, which is hosted by our Nana here. Yeah. And so join us every Sunday. We always start around 3:30 p.m. and go until about 5 p.m. and talk about topics that affect our lives.
Absolutely.
So I thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you have the great rest of your Sundays. You guys want to add anything? One final comment? We got like 2 more minutes.
Just get awareness. Just
yes.
Know yourself. Seek awareness.
Okay. And, so everyone take about 1 minute and give us some final comments.
Yeah. Just for me, it's just seek awareness. There's so much resources out there. Yeah. There's so much, endless. Just know what works for you, and just seek help. Yeah. And speak up. Right. Because if you don't speak, I don't know what's wrong with you, unless you tell me what's wrong with you.
Right.
And how I can help.
Yeah.
So just be aware.
Okay. Deidre?
Well, just as you say, speak up, speak out. Know that God loves you. Yes. You know, in spite of it all, He still loves you. And if you just talk to Him, have a relationship with Him, He will see you through all of this.
Yes. I would just say you cannot change what you will not acknowledge. So even if it's in a journal, even if it's on a Facebook page, feel free to comment on this page with us. I will speak to those dark places, the things that are going on that nobody knows about, the experiences that you've had that nobody knows about. That is where the pain is, but that could also be where the purpose is. So I would say speak on those things. Tell somebody what's happened to you. You are not what's happened to you, but it will continue to control you until you do something about it. So we're here for you if you need somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Wow. Some powerful stuff here. Very, very powerful. And like I said, I learned a lot. I hope you also, the people that are online, the people that watched either all or part of the show, I hope you learned a lot. And I hope that you'll continue to join us as we talk about health and healing. I thank you very much. And I'm waiting for my producer to say something. I feel like I need to say something else. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for the pause here.
Yes.
All right.
We'll see you guys next week.
Live worship next week.
See you next week. Yeah, live worship
next week.
Sunday of every month. I already went through this. But live worship is next month. I don't know who's going to be on for live worship, but join us.
We'll be here.
Yeah, it'll definitely be worth your while.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.